Hello, and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari. This is Great Big History Podcast. In our continuing series of world history from 1450 to almost yesterday. Life, the universe, and science, where we can blow up a mountain, an actual mountain, or one in our living room. So science, what we think of as science, was a reaction to violence of the Reformation. Because the question of the Reformation was, who knows God? Who knows God better, Catholics or Protestants? And the answer is, whoever kills the other person. There was no answer. And so science is a search for an answer. That's what science is. So if the Reformation is about who controls knowledge, science is, we don't care as long as there's a right answer. And so science uses a new language. It's not new, but it uses math as its language. Scientists don't speak in English or German or literature or references or the Bible. They speak in math. Why? It's dispassionate. If there is a class you're going to get into a fight into over the content, it's much more likely to be history than math. I mean, look at all the stuff we're talking about. We're talking about who is a person. We're talking about who is enslaved and who isn't enslaved. Are women people or are they children? Or are they neither? What is the nature of your soul? That's what we've talked about in history. In math, 2x plus 3y equals z. Z is 4. You are not getting into a punching match in your math class over Z. Why? Because math is dispassionate. Why is math dispassionate? Because it's right or it's wrong. It's right or it's wrong. Which is why math has so much cheating in it. So much cheating. Because it's just throw it into a computer to get a formula back, and then you just write it down. Do you understand it? No. Whereas history, you gotta understand it. Even to explain it back to me in words. And that is kind of the problem with AI, is it's now faking that knowledge, which is why we're all going to end up back with blue books taking tests in class or oral exams. Like that's like AI is going to so take over stuff. We're just going to go back and set you down and go, okay, you wrote me an essay. Tell me what you wrote. And then watch how many people fail that question. So math is the language of science. It's dispassionate. It's right or it's wrong. And so what we get is a scientific method. Science, to be science, must be right and verifiable 100% of the time. And you have to be able to hand over that method, like a recipe, to other people, and they get to prove whether or not you're right. You say you're right, other people have to prove you're right. We just had a Nobel Prize winning in science and physics a few years ago, which was the proof of the Higgs boson particle, I think. It's something with Higgs, what they called the quote-unquote God particle, right? But Higgs, I don't even think Higgs is alive. I mean, it's been 50 years, 60 years or more. So I don't have the Wikipedia in front of me to tell you, but it's not recent. Higgs did not come up with it and then proved it and then won a Nobel Prize in it. He came up with it when my grandfather was still alive. So you needed somebody else to prove it. That's the scientific method. So what does that do? So by saying it has to be right and verifiable and proven by others, it attacks magic. It attacks miracles. It attacks common rituals people do, especially women. female, non-institutional knowledge. An herbal tea to help with a pregnancy, or to help with an abortion, or to help induce labor, ways of setting bones, of miracles, of what Jesus does, right? Jesus turns the water into wine. Jesus comes back from the dead. He raises Lazarus from the dead. Like, Jesus is the loaves and the fish. Those are all miracles. Miracles are things, by definition, science cannot explain. So what science does is attack them. They can't be real. But they are real. My faith says they're real. That dolphin who came and saved me while I was drowning is a miracle sent by God. Prove it wasn't. But you can't prove it was either. So I have faith that it was. And I'm alive. And the dolphin was nice and there at the right time and willing to help me out. So magic is the little ability to control nature. And tell me composting is science. You take a whole bunch of garbage, stuff you were going to throw out, and you put it in a little composter. You add some worms, and oh, what do I get? A garden. I've got wildflowers in my entire backyard built from compost, right? The common rituals people do at like sporting events. The little, what we call superstitions. I gotta sit at the same place. I have to drink the same beer because the last time my team won in the playoffs. So I have to go to the same bar at the same time and order the same thing. People do this all the time. Science attacks them as dumb, as silly. But it attacks women because women are left out. They're not in the institutions. They're not in the universities. They're not part of the scientific revolution. But yet women have knowledge and have always had knowledge, going all the way back to our first class in History 101. So what science calls these women are witches, gypsies, which is a derogatory name for the Roma. These people who promise to tell the future with cards. You can't prove that. So science denigrates those things. It says it's fake. One of the reasons science is able to be science in the 1600s is the new technologies that were being invented that extended the senses. You were able to see things in new ways. You were able to see things you couldn't see before. You were able to see things in new ways. Hooke, using the microscope, sees red blood cells. What does that prove? Kind of proves that blood isn't a liquid. It's a solid. Or actually, it's a bunch of solids suspended in a plasma. People didn't know that. You couldn't see it. It looks like liquid. It flows. And yet, I have a picture of red blood cells. Those are solids. They look like donuts. Galileo sees the moons of Jupiter with a telescope. Sees them. Why does that matter? Because the moons of Jupiter are not orbiting the Earth. The Earth, thus, is not the center of the universe. If the moons of Jupiter are going around Jupiter, then the Earth isn't the center of the universe. But you didn't know. You couldn't have known that Jupiter had moons. You knew there were planets. The ancients knew there were planets because you could see them in the sky. And they do a weird, back and forth during the year. They're going to the left, and then they go to the right. Well, why? Well, That's because the perspective of you has changed because the Earth is moving in its orbit. It has swung around the sun. But you don't know that because you can't see it from your perspective. The telescope allows for these new things. You can see a changing universe. Look at the moon and look at all the things that hit it. People didn't really know that because you couldn't see it. With the telescope, now you could. So there was new knowledge proving that old knowledge was wrong, which means that's a problem if you're a conservative because you don't want old knowledge to be wrong. Old knowledge was right. And so the conservative attitude towards science is no, 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 no. In our picture, if you're watching the video, is of Galileo on trial for ruining people's minds, basically, for lying. And Galileo is there's an apocryphal story, and it is if it's not true, it should be true. He's found guilty. He's going to be put on house alert. His books are going to be burned, right, by the Catholic Church, which the reason why the Catholic Church is angry at Galileo is not because of Galileo. In fact, the Catholic Church will have some of the best observatories in the world, even today. It is a priest who discovers the Big Bang. But they're fighting the Reformation, and the Reformation is saying the church is wrong. And here comes Galileo saying, maybe the church is wrong about that whole Earth is the center of the universe. Maybe the Earth goes around the sun. Maybe Copernicus is right. And it's like it was too much for the Catholic Church. They were being attacked at the same time on too many levels. So they attacked the academic. You attack the colleges. You attack the universities. You attack because there's not that many people protecting them. We see that today, right? You just get the academics to shut up. And so the conservative attitude towards science is no, no, no. Because if science is right and Aristotle wrong, because Aristotle was the basis for knowledge, going all the way back to the Greeks, then people may think the king, the church, and the Bible is wrong. And that would lead to chaos. So thus, ideas are dangerous. So Galileo is forced to recant. Copernicus doesn't publish his book in his lifetime. He self-censors. How many books are not written? How many ideas never are published because people were afraid? The burning of the books is not about getting rid of the book. It's about stopping a book that isn't written from being written. That's why burning of books never happens privately. It's always in public. It's always for a show. It's always with a declaration. Because they want people not to write the book. So how many books were not written? Now, again, back to Galileo and his story. So his apocryphal story is he's found guilty. His stuff is going to be destroyed. The Catholic Church is basically saying, you're going to be forgotten. We're going to make sure you're forgotten. And Galileo is reported to have gotten up. And as he's walking out, he says, it still moves. The idea being is the earth still revolves around the sun. The truth is the truth no matter what you say. And sooner or later, the truth will be the truth because it is the truth. So you could close your eye, you could shut your eyes and close your ears and yell no, 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 no to your horse. It doesn't change the facts. Ideas are dangerous. And the institutions don't want to hear them. But it doesn't change the fact that a fact is a fact. What about Newton? So Newton makes science and scientists cool. when there's a very famous story that when Peter the Great, Peter, who's not yet the Great in 1700, he hasn't yet started his war against the Swedes that will eventually have him get the moniker the Great. When he's just Peter Romanoff, he comes to England and he's asked, what would you like to see? And Peter Romanoff, king of the Russians, Tsar of the Russians, I should say, excuse me, Tsar of the Russians, says, I want to meet that man Newton. I mean, he traveled, hundreds of miles. He wants to meet a scientist. Why? Because Newton was cool. I mean, take a look at Newton's burial in Westminster Abbey. I mean, it's in the middle of Westminster Abbey. It is awesome. It's Newton laying there. He's got some angels. He's got a globe. He's got books. I mean, it's awesome. So many of the people at Westminster Abbey are in the ground underneath the floor with a little marker with a name and some dates and maybe a thing about them. Maybe, one sentence. Newton has this. I mean, it's glorious. So he makes science and scientists cool. And his big argument is people can figure out the universe using math. Our biggest example is calculus and gravity. Show the movement of planets. And calculus, which you may hate, was invented because of a bar bet. Newton had a friend. They were out drinking, and as an academic, this is what, especially as grad students, because he was like 26 at the time, you argue a lot in class, in university, and then you go and you get something to eat and drink, and you keep arguing, you keep discussing it. And his friend, and he had to be 4 or 5 beers in, goes, Isaac, Izzy, we all know the circle is the most perfect form of geometry, right? And Izzy says, of course. It's 360 degrees. It's got pi in it. It's awesome, right? That's what Ptolemy told us. It is the greatest of all geometric shapes. And so the friend goes, Izzy, hold on. I got a thought. If it's the most perfect of shapes, why do planets not go around in circles? Every time I look at one of those models of the solar system in elementary school, it shows them going around in circles. Yet they don't go around in circles. Why not? And Isaac Newton says, well, I don't know what you mean by those little... I don't know what you mean by an elementary school. We haven't invented those yet. We need 200 years for that. But, I don't know. I don't know why we don't go around in a circle. Why we go around in an ellipse. I'll figure it out. And to figure it out, he had to invent calculus. To prove that the planets do move in an ellipse and not in a circle. And why? And the answer is gravity. That we are slingshotted around the sun. So at some point in the year, we are closest to the sun, and that speeds us up and shoots us out like a sling, and we go out, and we're almost about to leave the solar. We're almost about to leave our orbit and go flying off into the universe, and something pulls us, and we come slowly back, and we pick up speed as we hurtle towards the sun. It's gravity. He divided white light into colors, which is kind of the opposite of art. If you take all your colors and you put it together, you don't get white. You get mud, right? You get something that's a mush, right? But the idea that white light can be divided into multiple bands of light means not everything you see is what you see. What you see is not everything. What you see can be more complicated. This is an idea 150 years later that's going to be the hallmark of Sherlock Holmes, because they always start with a thing. And Watson goes, Sherlock, this one's easy, right? Right? The guy did it, right? The husband did it. It's right here. All the evidence points to it. And Sherlock Holmes goes, not everything you see is everything. You don't see everything. And so he goes into, like, it's elementary, Watson. But the idea is what you see can betray you. He also comes up with an early environmentalism. Now, he wouldn't say he's an environmentalist in the modern sense, but he'd say that nature is perfect. Nature is perfect. It is in balance. Everything works the way it's supposed to work. So then why are things out of whack? People. People can mess it up. People are the worst thing that happened to nature. Is a way of thinking about it. And so you have to have environmentalism. You have to protect the world because you can destroy it. People can fish up all the fish in the river. And what that does is thus by removing one fish, it could wipe out all the other fish and the turtles and everything in the river. And then you just are stuck with algae on top and everything dies. People with the pollution can change the land. If there were no people, thus no pollution, the land would be fine. It would be doing whatever the land is meant to do. And finally, he proves God exists, and he does it mathematically in his book, the Principia Mathematica. Now, what he does is basically take Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas's philosophical proposals, like there's the unmoved mover. This is Aristotelian, right? Now, Aristotle's not Catholic. He's not Christian. So he's talking about that there must be something bigger than people. The unmoved mover. If all movement is based on other movement, something must have moved things, but nothing moved it. For St. Thomas Aquinas, that's God. So St. Thomas Aquinas comes around 2,000 years later and goes, or 1,500 years later and goes, ha, that's the Catholic God. And Newton agrees with that and does it mathematically. Thomas Aquinas has history, he's got philosophy, he's got literature. He's got evidence, right? He's got philosophy mostly. But Newton has math. And so he goes through formulas of proving God exists mathematically. So if you need proof that God exists, and you're like, I need proof God exists, read the section in the Principia Mathematica. It's right there. And Newton was not like fervent. He was not like, he was a moral philosopher, right? I don't think he ever has the job of scientist. I think he is something like a moral philosopher, he might have even been a religion teacher, but he's not ever reputed as being like super fervent. But he looks at the evidence and says, all of this makes sense mathematically. So take a look. All right. So we did a lot. We invented new technologies. We had Galileo fight and say the Earth still moves. We had Newton invent environmentalism and prove God exists. We made your lives more complicated by putting math into everything, and we discounted women's magical powers. So, sorry, ladies, that's a tough one. So we did a lot. So be safe, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.